Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, it's pretty much a question as old as time. Where does the story end? Does it end after Luffy follows the poneglyphs, finds Laugh-Tale, discovers Roger's treasure, discovers the One Piece? Or does it end in Revujo, some sort of climactic battle taking place in the center of your enemy's territory? I know that a lot of you got your fingers ready, you're itching to type a comment because you already disagree. JB, this is not a question anymore. It's not a question because Oda has addressed this in an SBS. In volume 97, he stated that when the One Piece is found, the story will end. I was reminded of this subject recently because Oda said something similar in another interview recently, and I do think that this is a subject that still has a lot that you can potentially discuss from it. Basically, there's something about this that could be very misleading. But let's take a step back. I've said this on numerous occasions recently, but one of the most exciting things about being in post-Wano is we're not entirely sure where the story goes from here. And one of the things that creates a sensation is, okay, well, let's just assume that when the Strats find the One Piece, find Laugh-Tale, the story ends. Are they ever going to visit Revujo? Oda made a point of having the Marines build a new marine fort on the other side of the Red Line from where the previous one was, which is again very near Revujo. So this is just something that I think most people expected forever. But recently with Oda saying that he wants to end the story in roughly 5 years, perhaps less than that, perhaps more than that, and we assume that Laugh-Tale and Roger's treasure is located closer to Reverse Mountain, the literal other side of the world, how does all of this work? It almost seems as though, for this to make sense, the One Piece is found, the story ends, we have to, right now, after Wano, go backwards and go to Revujo. Or at least do so at some point in time before we find the One Piece. If you assume that once the One Piece is found, the story ends, this is the only way it works. If we're to actually visit these places, and I assume that we will, although my confidence is less than before. So let's talk about it. So for a long while it was believed possible that Sabo was captured by the world government, and the Strats would find this by reading the newspaper, or would learn this shortly. And so just like in the pre-time skip when Luffy learned about Ace, if Sabo was captured and execution was imminent, then that would be probably the best way in order to get Luffy to change course. Pretty much the only things that interrupt Luffy's journey in the story is the threats to his friends. But with the last chapter, it just doesn't seem likely. Rather than there being bad news about Sabo in the newspaper, that was not the case at all. Of course, Cobra died, but everything about Sabo was more so hype, about the things that he's being framed for, and we're not led to believe at all that he's been captured. Kainu doesn't suggest this, so I don't think that's the case. I think Sabo is with the Revolutionary Army. So, if anything is going to inspire Luffy to go backwards, it has to be big, and it has to be an immediate threat. And right now, we don't have that. Of course, there's a question about Vivi's status. Vivi has gone missing, but I think that without a definitive piece of news or location for her, I can't imagine that Luffy is just going to attack the world government trying to ask them where she's gone. It doesn't make any sense to me. So, just for the sake of completeness, if the Strats were to turn around and head to Revujo, there'd need to be a threat to somebody. It's probably not Vivi, it's probably not Sabo. You could throw in Caribou. Caribou knows about Shirahoshi Poseidon. Something could happen with Shirahoshi. There's obviously a threat to Robin. A lot of people disagree or don't believe that Robin will get captured, but hypothetically, I suppose it's possible. Something like this would have to happen right now for the Strats to turn around, and I don't see that happening. In my opinion, the important events that are going to take place in Revujo itself are going to take place off-screen to the Strats' journey. I think that a lot of people have it in their minds that Luffy needs to be the one to free the slaves from Revujo, take down the Celestial Dragons, and I do think that that would have been fitting in the story if Oda wanted to go in that direction, but he doesn't have to, because there's other factions that may want to see an end to the Celestial Dragons first. Notably among those is the Revolutionary Army, but I think more in speculative terms, which I find to be really interesting, I think that the Marines and Akainu could want the Celestial Dragons to fall. I think that it is entirely possible that the Revolutionary Army's revolution succeeds, and in the midst of the chaos, Akainu finally seizes the opportunity that he's been looking for to have absolute power. At the very least, I want to argue this conceptually. We know that the Celestial Dragons do all sorts of things that nobody likes them for. We know that they're heavily evolved in the underground, tied with Doflamingo, tied with Kaido. These are facts that are likely going to come to light soon. It's going to lead to massive upheaval. And then you need to think about Akainu's character, what he wants, and what he might do. If he discovers, and I'm fairly certain that he doesn't have proof or know for sure, but if he discovers that a lot of the world's evil is tied directly to Cypherpole and the world nobles, he is going to eliminate them, because that is what Akainu does. This has been pretty overt, I think, in every single scene that we see of Akainu when he addresses the Gorosei, but they do not like each other. Akainu does not like being subservient to these fools. I think that it's clear from the context that Akainu has an idea of what he wants to do. He wants to go on the attack, he wants to be aggressive, he wants to eliminate all the evil, and the Gorosei often hold him back. I could really see it being true that he seizes the Revolutionary Army's agenda and then turns it in order to accumulate power for himself. And as an idea, this is very relevant to world history, and in particular Japanese history as well, where you have a general, the leader of the army, who makes himself emperor. Or the emperor, in fact, the person with all the power, even if there is some other emperor who acts as a figurehead. As I said, this is particularly important in Japanese history and could very well be an inspiration for the story of One Piece. From about the 1200s to the late 1800s, a shogun had all the power in Japan. There was a succession of shogunates. I'm sure that most know this, but shogun was originally just a general. So I don't want to parse definitions here, but when one individual seizes control, you have a military dictatorship, and then if the military itself is the government, then it's called a stratocracy. And probably the most famous example of this was ancient Rome. For the premise of this theory, either of these situations could be true. So I think that at least there's some historical precedent for Akainu seizing total power of the government and the Marines. And we've speculated this before, but I want to throw this out here now. I think it would be a pretty amazing plot twist to find out that the shadow leader of Sword, a marine organization which appears to be going against the agenda of the Celestial Dragons in Cypherpole, the shadow leader of Sword is in fact Akainu. Just like the Revolutionary Army, he's trying to dig up dirt to undermine the Celestial Dragons so that he can pursue his own agenda. But with One Piece trying to wrap up relatively soon, and I think Oda's probably going to want to look for a way that Luffy won't need to go backwards, I do think that events like this could occur without the strats present and still carry a lot of weight. And if it goes like this, I think that it accomplishes a lot of things that will be necessary in the story, which is, as we get closer to the end, the stakes need to ramp up. And a good way to accomplish that is pretty much the realization that Akainu as the leader of the government is absolutely worse than whatever is currently the case. And so from this point, we have the next theory. Seeing Shanks in the last chapter solidified an idea that I had been toying with for a couple months. I never expected it from Shanks, but the idea he conveyed is that it's time for him to go search for the One Piece. And it created this impression in my mind of like Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shanks all meeting up just before or at Laugh Tale. So assuming that the final battle occurs in Laugh Tale after finding the One Piece, that would be a pretty fitting conclusion, I would say. A great place for Shanks to sort of have his moment. But why does it just have to be Shanks? Why can't other faction also join in? In this case, I'm talking about Akainu. Akainu seizes control of the Marines or the government. It doesn't matter which way, but we know that Akainu, he wants to go scorched earth against the pirates, and likely his targets are going to be the very strongest pirates who exist, and it seems like for those that remain, we know where they're all going. I could see Akainu throwing his hat in the ring and being a part of that melee, because we know this for sure. We know that the Straw Hats and Luffy is going to have an opportunity to fight the Marines directly, the other admirals, but specifically Akainu himself. If we don't go backwards, if One Piece ends in 3 to 5 years, then the only way that this meeting is likely to take place is if Akainu moves his armies away from Revujo. I think that most people thought that New Marineford was created so that we could have another Marineford in Revujo, but it also moves the Marine base of operation into the New World. Basically, it allows the Marines to start the path to tackle the New World. And this time there won't be any large, powerful, stationary pirate groups blocking their way, and potentially no celestial dragons, Cypherpole, or Gorosei to tell Akainu what to do. There's obviously some things that need to occur. Akainu needs some way of being able to find Laugh-Tale, follow the poneglyphs, get that information in some way, somebody to interpret it. These will be necessary acquisitions on Akainu's part to participate, but I think that it is very reasonable that he could. I don't really want to speculate every possibility, but just to throw a theory out there that I like is Randy Troy made a theory a long while ago that Law could be a member of Sword. Whether it happens or not, we'll find out, but I do like the theory. And we've also speculated that Akainu could be leader of Sword, which just makes a lot of sense to me. We know that Law has been traveling with the Strats, has found the poneglyph in Zou because of the Strats, has found poneglyphs in Wano because of the Strats. If he's a member of Sword, this information might be related to his superiors, thus provide the blueprint, the tools Akainu needs in order to join the fray, in a way nobody would predict. But I don't want to make this video longer than it needs to be, so this is kind of the theory, right? We know that One Piece is supposed to end relatively soon, sooner than a lot of people would expect or predict. So if you're looking for a way to speed up the story of One Piece, this seems to me to be the most viable pathway. No traveling backwards. Your enemies actually are also looking for the One Piece so that we can converge at the end of the Grand Line at Laugh-Tale for your final battle, and then, as Oda states, the story ends there. But I have one final thought. Everybody takes it as gospel, as absolute truth, that the story will end after Luffy finds the One Piece, which is located in Laugh-Tale. But I think that that could be misleading, because the thing that people take for granted is whether or not Roger actually found the One Piece or not. I don't want to get into the weeds, but there's very few people that actually believe that the One Piece is a physical thing. I know that Oda commented in SBS or in a question one time that, there will be an actual reward at the end of the journey. Some people interpreted this as a physical reward, but I think that the consensus right now most likely is that the One Piece is more of an idea. Like world peace, for instance, the world is currently fractured into pieces, and Luffy is going to bring the world together into a singular piece, One Piece. Roger may have found a lot of treasure and a lot of cool things on his adventure, and he might have left it in Laugh-Tale, but a theme that the story makes clear is that treasure is different for everyone, and treasure for Luffy is not what treasure is for other people. This is established very early on in the series in Orangetown with Buggy. Luffy's treasure was his beat-up hat, which would matter to nobody but himself. And it simultaneously represents his dreams, because his dreams are also his treasure. So there will be a reward at the end of the journey once they find Laugh-Tale, but what will that be? And I've said this on numerous occasions, knowledge is a treasure. And that's definitely part of what Roger spent his journey trying to accumulate. But it's still probably not the One Piece. But the point of what I'm saying here is that once Luffy finds Laugh-Tale, there's no guarantee that he finds the One Piece. He may learn of what the One Piece is and how it can actually be found, but he might not actually find it, which means that everything that Oda is saying about the story ending once Luffy finds the One Piece, everyone assumes, oh, well, that's that Laugh Tale. It doesn't have to be true. But I've left some things unsaid. For instance, Emu, we haven't talked about him too much. What role does he have to play in the story? Will he ever be an antagonist for the Strats? Or is he going to make his appearance known when Akainu does something or the Revolutionary Army does something? How does this all add up? I'm not too sure. But with Oda and his team going out of their ways to try and inform everybody that the story of One Piece is going to end sooner than they think, I think that we should be thinking about ways to speed up the story, and this video is my attempt to wrap my mind around how it could be possible. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I have to say today. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. As always, like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. Just do it. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.